Tomas was a young man who lived on a farming colony called Omerifor. The colony was far away from Earth, but it was peaceful and full of life. People had come here many years ago to grow crops and build a better future. The sky was always blue, and the land was green and rich. Tomas loved the quiet life. He helped his family with the crops and repaired machines when they broke down. One warm morning, Tomas was working near the edge of the colony, trying to fix a water purifier that had stopped working. It was a common problem. The machines were old and needed care. He had his small toolkit, a flask of cool juice, and a quiet breeze to keep him company. As he leaned down to tighten a bolt, he heard something, a soft sound, like footsteps on dry leaves. He turned quickly. At first, he didn't see anyone. But then, from behind a group of tall plants, a figure stepped out. Tomas stood up straight, surprised. It was a woman, but not like anyone he had ever seen. Her skin was a soft shade of blue, and her eyes were a glowing green, bright but calm. She wore a long, silver cloth that moved like water when she walked. Her hair was dark and tied back. She looked close to his age, but her presence felt much older. She didn't seem afraid, but she looked around like everything was new to her. Tomas was careful. "Are you all right?" he asked, keeping his voice calm. The woman looked at him, then slowly walked forward. Her eyes fell on his right arm, where his sleeve was slightly rolled up. There, on his skin, was a spiral-shaped mark, something he had always had since he was a child. Suddenly, her calm face changed. She stopped walking and stared at the mark. "Where did you get this mark?" she asked, her voice quiet but serious. Tomas looked down at his arm. "This," he said. "I was born with it. It's always been there." The woman looked at him with wide eyes, as if she had seen something she didn't expect. "You don't know what it means?" she asked. "No," Tomas said. "I asked my grandfather once, but he just said it was nothing special." The woman took a step back, her eyes still on the mark. She looked like she was thinking deeply. Then, without saying another word, she turned and walked away fast, almost running. "Wait," Tomas called out. "Who are you?" But she was gone. She moved quickly through the tall plants and disappeared into the trees beyond. Tomas stood still for a moment, confused and curious. He looked down at the mark again. It was just a small, dark spiral, about the size of a coin. He had never felt anything strange about it. It was simply a part of him. But now, he couldn't stop thinking about her words. That evening, Tomas returned home. He lived in a small house made of stone and metal with his grandfather, old Harun. Harun was one of the first settlers on Omerifor. He was wise and strong. Though his hair was white and his steps were slow. As they ate dinner together, Tomas finally asked, "Grandpa, do you remember the mark on my arm?" Harun looked at him and nodded. "Yes, of course. Someone saw it today," Tomas said. "An alien woman. She looked at it like it meant something big." At this, Harun's face changed. He became quiet and looked down at his food. "What does it mean?" Tomas asked again. "You never really told me." Harun sighed. "I didn't tell you because I didn't know if it mattered anymore," he said. "That mark, it's very old. Older than you, maybe older than this colony." Tomas leaned forward, listening carefully. "A long time ago," Harun said slowly, "there was a story about an old race called the Senari. They were peaceful, wise, and full of knowledge. They didn't fight. They shared. They worked with early humans before the first colonies were built." Tomas blinked. "I've never heard of them." "Most haven't," Harun said. "They vanished. No one knows why. But some say they left behind symbols, and some say they gave part of their knowledge to humans they trusted." Tomas looked down at his arm again. "You think this is one of those symbols?" Harun nodded slowly. "Maybe, but I can't be sure." That night, Tomas couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the woman with blue skin and green eyes. She had known something. Her reaction was too strong to be random. And she had asked the same question that Tomas had wondered since he was a child. "Where did you get this mark?" The next morning, Tomas woke early and returned to the same spot near the water purifier. He waited there for hours. The sky moved from soft orange to bright blue, and the sun rose higher. He thought maybe she wouldn't come back. But then, just after noon, he heard the soft sound of steps again. She was back. This time, she didn't hide. She walked toward him directly, her face serious but calm. "My name is Mela," she said. "Tomas," he replied. "I'm sorry I left yesterday," Mela said. "But I had to be sure. That mark on your arm, it's from my people." "Your people?" Tomas asked. "You mean the Scenari?" Mela looked surprised. "You've heard of us?" Tomas nodded. "My grandfather told me a little." Mela paused, then said, "You carry something very old and very important. That mark is not just a symbol. It's a key, a forgotten key." Tomas felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. A key to what? Mela looked at him seriously. "Come with me. I'll show you." Tomas looked at Mela, unsure of what she meant. Her voice was serious, and her green eyes held a quiet urgency. "A key?" he asked. "A key to what?" Mela glanced around. The trees swayed gently in the wind. "It's not safe to talk here," she said. "We need to go somewhere hidden, somewhere quiet." Tomas paused for a moment. He didn't know much about her. She was still a stranger. But there was something honest in her voice, something that made him trust her. "All right," he said. "Lead the way." Mela nodded once, then turned and began walking toward the forest. Tomas followed closely. The forest was thick, but the path she took seemed known to her. The sunlight passed through the leaves, making patterns on the ground. Birds chirped softly, and the air smelled fresh and earthy. They walked for a long time. Tomas didn't ask questions. He watched her from behind, noticing how she moved confidently, like someone who had traveled this way many times. After about an hour, they reached the base of a rocky hill. At the bottom, hidden behind large ferns and bushes, was a small dark opening. "This is it," Mela said, brushing the plants aside. "It's an old path, almost forgotten." She stepped inside. Tomas hesitated for only a second, then followed her into the cool darkness. Inside the cave, it was cold and quiet. Their footsteps echoed softly as they moved forward. The tunnel curved and sloped down. Tomas could see faint lights on the walls, small glowing stones that gave off a soft blue light. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To a chamber that was built long ago by my people," Mela said. "Most don't know it exists, but I found it during my research." Tomas looked around. "Why bring me?" "Because the door only opens for someone with your mark," she said without looking back. "I've waited a long time to find someone like you. Soon." The tunnel opened into a large round chamber. The walls were smooth and silver gray. Strange shapes and symbols were carved into the stone, circling all the way up to the ceiling. In the center of the room stood a tall, flat panel. It looked like a door, but there was no handle or lock, only a flat surface with the same spiral shape as the mark on Tomas' arm. Mela turned to him, touched the center of the spiral. She said softly. Tomas walked toward the panel. His heart was beating fast. He slowly raised his right hand and placed it on the spiral. Nothing happened for a moment. Then the stone began to glow beneath his hand. The light spread slowly, following the lines of the symbol. A soft hum filled the room. The panel split down the middle and slid open. Tomas stepped back, amazed. Mela smiled slightly. It worked. Inside the newly opened space was another chamber, smaller but filled with light. Floating in the air were glowing crystal-like objects. Symbols moved slowly across the walls, changing shape and color. It felt peaceful, like the room itself was alive. "What is this place?" Tomas whispered. "It's called the Memory Hall," Mela said. "It holds pieces of our history. Long ago, the Scenari and humans worked together. They shared knowledge and ideas. They believed in peace and understanding. This mark," she pointed to his arm, "was given to a few humans as a sign of trust. Those humans became known as sentinels." "Sentinels?" Tomas repeated. "What did they do?" "They protected knowledge. Not weapons, not power, just knowledge," Mela said. "They were chosen because they were honest and curious." The The mark was a key to places like this, safe places where our shared history was kept. Tomas walked slowly around the room. One of the floating crystals came closer to him as it neared. Images began to form inside it, images of tall Scifi working alongside humans. In a garden full of light, they were building something together, laughing, sharing ideas. "This is amazing," Tomas said quietly. Mel watched him. "I didn't think any humans with the mark still existed," she said. "I thought the knowledge would remain locked forever." Tomas turned to her. "Why? Now, why show me this?" "Because there's more," Mel said. "I didn't just come here to study the past. I came because something dangerous is waking up. We received signals of patterns, something trying to search for these hidden chambers. We believe someone is trying to unlock the core map." "The core map?" Tomas asked. "It's a network of information left behind by both our people," Mel explained. "It holds peaceful technologies, ideas for building better worlds, and knowledge about the galaxy. But if someone uses it wrongly, it could bring great harm." Tomas frowned. "And my mark, it connects to that map." "Yes," Mel said. "You're part of it. Your presence opened this door. Only someone with the mark can reach the next part of the network. You might be the last sentinel." Tomas felt a strange mix of fear and wonder. He had always thought he was just a normal person, a farmer, a helper. But now, he was being told he was part of something ancient and important. "What do I have to do?" he asked. "We must find the next chamber," Mel said. "There are many across the stars, but the nearest one is on this planet. And if someone else finds it before we do, the balance could be broken." Tomas took a deep breath. He looked at the glowing images around him. He thought about his quiet life and his small farm. But deep inside, he felt something more, something calling him forward. "Then let's find it," he said. "Together." Mela smiled for the first time. "Yes, together." Tomas and Mela stood inside the glowing chamber, surrounded by floating crystals and moving symbols. Tomas still could not believe what he had just seen. Only hours ago, he was fixing a water purifier. Now, he had opened a hidden door with his arm, walked into a secret chamber, and learned that he might be the last human sentinel. Mela pointed to one of the walls. The symbols had changed. A new path was now glowing, stretching across a map of the planet. "There," she said. "That's where we must go next." Tomas walked over and looked closely. The path led to a place deep in the mountains, far beyond the colony border. It was marked with a star-like symbol. "What's there?" Tomas asked. "Another chamber," Mel replied. "A larger one. It holds the next part of the core map." Tomas nodded slowly. "How far is it?" "About 2 days by foot," Mel said. "The roads are not safe for transport. We must go through quiet paths, old ones that most people have forgotten." Tomas looked at the glowing room one last time, then turned to Mela. "Then let's start." They left the chamber and walked back through the dark tunnel. When they reached the outside, the sun was already beginning to set. The sky turned orange and purple, and the air was cooler. They stopped under a tall tree to rest. Tomas sat on a rock and looked at the fading light. "Did you know about the sentinels when you were young?" he asked. Mela sat nearby. "Not at first. I was trained as a scholar. I studied old records, hidden files, and lost stories. I thought the sentinels were just legends. But then I found this map." She pointed to a small glowing device she carried, "and it led me here. And when you saw my mark," Tomas began. "I knew you were part of it," Mel said. "The spiral is rare, even among my people. Only a few can read its energy." Tomas looked at his arm. The mark had always been part of him, but it never meant anything until now. "I never imagined it was connected to anything big." Mela smiled gently. "Sometimes the smallest marks hold the biggest secrets." The next morning, they began their journey into the mountains. The path was quiet and wild. Tall trees stood on both sides, and thick green moss covered the rocks. Birds flew above, and small animals moved through the bushes. Tomas had never been this far from the colony before. Every step felt new. They followed the glowing map on Mela's device. It showed them hidden turns and old stone piles that were nearly lost under grass and vines. Sometimes they had to climb or slide down muddy slopes, but Tomas didn't complain. He wanted to understand what all of this meant. On the second evening, they reached a narrow ridge. Below them was a deep valley, and at the far end of it stood a tall rock wall. In the center of the wall was a large circle covered with vines. "That's it," Mela said. The second chamber. They climbed down carefully and reached the wall just before sunset. Mela brushed the vines away. The same spiral symbol was carved into the stone larger than the one in the first chamber. There was a small place for Tomas to place his hand. "Are you ready?" Mela asked. Tomas nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." He placed his right hand on the spiral. The stone glowed softly under his fingers. A humming sound began, just like before. The ground shook slightly, and the circular wall began to open. Dust rose into the air as the door slowly moved aside. Behind it was a large cave, shaped like a dome. Inside, the light was soft and blue. On the far side stood a tall pillar with a crystal on top. Tomas and Mela stepped inside. The moment they entered, the crystal on the pillar lit up, and more images began to appear in the air. They showed stars, planets, and paths connecting them. "This is part of the core map," Mela said. Walking closer, it shows where the Centauri and humans once worked together. Tomas looked around in wonder. The walls were covered with carvings, pictures of peaceful cities, gardens, and ships that floated through space without noise. In one part of the room, he saw a group of people, some human, some Centauri, standing together with the same spiral mark on their arms. "They built this together," Tomas whispered. "They were more connected than we ever knew." "Yes," Mela said softly. "And now, that connection is waking up again." Suddenly, the lights in the room flickered. The crystal on the pillar began to blink red. A sound echoed through the chamber like a warning tone. Mela turned quickly to the pillar. "Something's wrong." Tomas walked over. "What is it?" Mela looked at the blinking lights. "A signal has been sent. The chamber has been found. Not just by us. Someone else has noticed the activation." "Who?" Tomas asked. Mela's face grew serious. "A group called the Orcs. They don't believe in sharing knowledge. They search for old places like this to take power for themselves, if they're nearby. We must hurry." "What do we do now?" Tomas asked. "We must unlock the final location from this map," Mela said. "It's not safe to stay here. The last part of the core map is on another planet. If the Orcs reach it first, they could misuse everything the Sentinels once protected." Tomas nodded. He looked at the images around them. The past was beautiful, full of peace and unity. He didn't want to lose that future. "Then let's move fast," he said. Mela smiled. "You really are a true Sentinel." Together, they activated the final map signal. A new path appeared leading far into the stars. Tomas looked at it and knew his life was about to change again. Tomas stood quietly in front of the glowing pillar. The floating images in the air had now formed a new star map. A small blue dot blinked at the edge of the galaxy. Mela stepped forward and tapped her device to capture the data. "That is where the last piece of the core map is hidden," she said. "It's on a planet called Velora." Tomas looked at the glowing dot. It seemed far, very far. "How do we get there?" "We'll need a starship," Mela replied. "And we'll need to leave as soon as possible. The Orcs have already received the signal. They'll be searching for the same thing." Tomas nodded. "Then we can't waste any time." Mela touched the side of the pillar, and the glowing map disappeared. The chamber slowly dimmed, returning to silence. They stepped back into the mountain valley, where the evening breeze had turned cold. "We'll head to the outpost on the west side of the colony," Mela said. "There's an old Centauri ship hidden there. It still works." Tomas raised his eyebrows. "You had a ship all along." Mela gave a small smile. "I wasn't sure I would need it now." "I'm sure." They walked through the night. The stars above were bright, and the path was quiet. Tomas didn't feel tired. His thoughts were full of questions, and his heart felt heavy with responsibility. "Mela," he asked, "do you think the core map can really help people?" Mela looked at him. Yes? It holds ideas that could heal planets, grow food faster, and help different species live together. That's why the Sentinels were created to protect it. But what if the Karnics get to it first? Tomas asked. They don't want peace, Mela said. They want control. That's why we must stop them, not by fighting, but by reaching the core first and locking it with the right code. What kind of code? Tomas asked. Mela looked thoughtful. The final chamber will ask for something only a true Sentinel can give. Not a password, not a command, something deeper. Tomas didn't ask more. He didn't have all the answers. But he knew one thing: he was part of this now. By morning, they reached the outpost. It was hidden between two cliffs, overgrown with plants and vines. The building looked old and broken, but when Mela placed her hand on a hidden scanner, a part of the rock wall moved aside, revealing a metal door. Inside, it was quiet and dark. Tomas followed her down a narrow hallway until they reached a round chamber with a silver ship resting in the center. The ship was smooth and shaped like a bird. Lights along its surface began to glow as they entered. It still works, Mela said with relief. We can be in orbit within an hour. They climbed into the ship. Mela sat at the front and began pressing buttons. Tomas took the seat beside her. Have you flown before? She asked. Only small carriers at the colony, Tomas said. Nothing like this, Mela smiled. Don't worry. This one flies almost by itself. The engines hummed quietly, and the roof above them slid open. The ship lifted smoothly off the ground, rising through the sky. Tomas watched as the trees grew smaller below them. Within minutes, they were above the clouds, and the stars filled the sky ahead. Then, with a gentle pull, the ship entered space. The journey to Valora would take several hours using a fast route through old Centauri tunnels, safe paths between stars that only few knew. As the ship flew quietly through space, Mela opened the files from the second chamber. The final vault, she said, pointing at the screen, is hidden under a mountain lake on Valora. But there's a layer of protection around it. Only a sentinel can pass through. What happens if someone else tries? Tomas asked. The vault won't open. It might even disappear, Mela said. It's designed to move if it senses danger. Tomas leaned back in his seat. It's like it's alive. Mela nodded. In some ways, it is. Suddenly, a small red light blinked on the screen. Mela tapped it. A message appeared. Karnik's signal. She said, They're close. Tomas looked at the screen. Are they following us? Mela shook her head. Not yet, but they're heading toward Valora. They may have guessed the location. Then we must get there first, Tomas said. Hours later, Valora came into view. It was a calm-looking planet, mostly blue and green, with wide oceans and soft clouds. The ship entered the atmosphere quietly. They landed on a grassy plain near the lake Mela had marked earlier. The air was fresh and cool. Birds flew above them, and tall trees swayed nearby. Tomas stepped out and looked around. It's beautiful here. Mela smiled. Yes, this was once a training world for sentinels. They walked toward the lake. At first, it looked like any other peaceful place. But when Tomas stepped closer, the water shimmered, and the center of the lake began to glow. A circle of light formed just below the surface. Mela pointed. That's the entrance. They removed their outer gear and stepped into the water. As Tomas walked through the light, he felt a gentle pull, and suddenly, he was no longer standing in water. He was inside a dry stone chamber beneath the lake. The walls were tall and round. In the center stood another pillar, this one larger, with a glowing orb on top. Around it were seats, as if waiting for people to gather. It felt sacred, almost like a place of quiet meetings. Mela stepped forward. This is it. The core map rests inside this orb, but it will only open when you place your hand on it. Tomas took a deep breath. Slowly, he stepped forward and placed his hand on the orb. The room filled with soft light. The orb began to spin, and images appeared: maps, formulas, plants, cities, bridges, peaceful faces, and warm skies. Then the light stopped. A soft voice spoke, not with words, but through feeling. Tomas felt it inside him. The core was asking him something simple but powerful. Why do you seek this knowledge? Tomas closed his eyes. He didn't speak aloud. In his heart, he answered, to help, to heal, to protect what was once shared. The light grew stronger. The orb accepted his answer. It's working. Mela said with joy, you've been accepted. But then, a sharp sound echoed through the chamber. A warning light blinked. They found us. Mela whispered. Tomas turned toward the entrance. The Karniks were here. Tomas and Mela heard a distant rumble outside the chamber. The warning light blinked faster, and the soft voice in the orb grew quiet. The peaceful feeling in the room was replaced by tension. We don't have much time, Mela said quietly. The Karniks are here. Tomas looked at her, heart pounding. Who exactly are they? They are a group that wants to control knowledge and power, Mela explained. They believe in taking, not sharing. They do not care about peace or the future. If they reach the core map, they could use it to harm many worlds. Tomas clenched his fists. We can't let that happen. Mela nodded. We must protect this place, and fast. The chamber's walls began to glow softly. Tomas noticed small symbols rising from the floor, light beams forming shapes like shields. This chamber can defend itself, Mela said, but it needs us to be united, to work as one. Tomas felt a strange energy rising inside him. The mark on his arm glowed faintly. He reached out to Mela's hand. Together, he said. Mela took his hand firmly. The symbols around them brightened. The shield around the chamber grew stronger. Outside, the sound of heavy steps approached. Tomas could hear voices rough, angry, and loud. They're breaking through, Mela said. Prepare yourself. Suddenly, a part of the wall shifted. A group of Karniks warriors entered. Their armor was dark and heavy. They carried strange tools and weapons that looked like they could disrupt energy. Tomas and Mela stood close. Tomas felt fear, but also a strong will to protect the core map. One of the Karniks stepped forward. Step aside, he said, voice cold. You have no right to keep this knowledge. Mela raised her hand, and a bright light shot from her palm. The Karniks stopped, shielding their eyes. We are the Guardians, she said, and this knowledge belongs to those who seek peace. The Karniks' leader snarled. Peace is weakness. Power is everything. Tomas stepped forward, feeling the energy in his arm. You are wrong, he said. True strength comes from helping others, not from control. The Karniks growled but moved closer. Mela whispered, now, Tomas. Tomas focused on the glowing symbols beneath their feet. He raised his hand, and the shield became a solid barrier of light. The Karniks' weapons hit the barrier and sparked, but could not break through. The warriors shouted and tried to find another way in. Mela took a deep breath. We can't fight them forever. We must finish what we started. Tomas nodded. He turned to the orb on the pillar. The light inside it was steady now. Orb, complete the activation, Mela said. The orb began to spin faster, sending waves of light across the chamber. Images appeared again, ideas, inventions, plans for peace and growth. The shield around them grew brighter, expanding beyond the chamber. Outside, the Karniks felt the power. They tried to attack, but the light pushed them back. One Karniks warrior shouted, retreat. This place is protected by old magic. We cannot win. The others followed, running back through the opening they came from. Tomas and Mela watched as the last of the Karniks disappeared into the shadows. When the chamber quieted again, Tomas lowered his hand. We did it, he said, breathing hard. Mela smiled. Yes, the core map is safe for now. Tomas looked at the orb. What happens next? The core map will share its knowledge with those who deserve it, Mela said, and we will protect it together. Tomas looked at the glowing spiral on his arm. He felt proud. He was more than a farmer now. He was a guardian of peace and knowledge, together. Tomas and Mela stepped out of the chamber. The stars shone above them, full of hope and promise. After the Karniks retreated, Tomas and Mela took a moment to catch their breath. The air inside the chamber felt lighter now, filled with calm energy. The glowing orb continued to shine softly, as if pleased by their success. We need to move. Quickly, Mela said. The Karniks will not give up so easily. They will search for other ways to reach the core map. Tomas nodded. What's our next step? Mela pulled out a small device from her bag. It showed a map of the stars, with blinking dots marking important locations. We must send a signal to the other sentinels across the galaxy. They need to know the core map is awake again. Tomas looked at the stars on the screen. Are there many sentinels left? Very few, Mela said quietly. Most have hidden or disappeared. But if we find them, they can help protect the knowledge. Tomas felt a new sense of purpose. Then let's find them. The two returned to their ship and prepared for the journey ahead. The engines hummed as the ship lifted from Valora's surface and returned to the stars. Tomas watched the blue planet grow smaller behind them as they traveled. Mela explained more about the core map. It is more than just information, she said. It is a gift from the Centauri. They believe knowledge should be shared only with those who want to use it wisely. The core map helps protect that idea. Tomas thought about his home on Omera 4. If we share this knowledge, it could help many worlds grow and live in peace. Yes, Mela agreed. But it must be protected. That's why the Sentinels exist. Days passed as they traveled between star systems. Sometimes they stopped on quiet planets to search for signs of other Sentinels. On one small desert world, they found an old signal beacon still sending a weak message. It was from a sentinel named Lena. Mela contacted the beacon and sent a message. After a tense wait, a voice replied, I'm Lena, the voice said softly. I have been waiting for this signal. Tomas smiled. We are coming, soon. Their ship landed near Lena's home. She was a woman with kind eyes and quick hands. Living among the red sands, she had the same spiral mark on her arm. Lena welcomed Tomas and Mela warmly. The core map has been silent for many years, she said. I feared it was lost forever. Mela explained what had happened on Valora. Lena listened carefully. We must unite, Lena said. Together, we can protect the knowledge and keep it safe from the Karnics. Tomas felt hope growing. How can we stop them? Lena looked at the sky. By being stronger, smarter, and more united than they expect. The three sentinels prepared to send messages to others scattered across the stars. Each was a link in a chain, a guardian of the old peace. As they worked, Tomas thought about how much his life had changed. From a simple farmer to a protector of ancient knowledge, his journey had only just begun. One night, as the stars twinkled outside Lena's home, Tomas looked at his arm. The spiral mark seemed to glow softly in the moonlight. Mela joined him. The mark connects us all. It is a symbol of trust and hope. Tomas nodded. I never thought I would be part of something so important. Mela smiled. Sometimes, the smallest things carry the greatest meaning. The next days were filled with work and travel. Tomas, Mela, and Lena continued their mission to find other sentinels. They faced challenges, rough planets, dangerous storms, and the ever-present threat of the Karnics. But with every step, they grew stronger. Tomas learned to trust his instincts and the power within him. One day, while traveling through a dense asteroid field, their ship was caught in a sudden storm of space. Debris, rocks, and ice moved dangerously close. Tomas took control. Hold on, he shouted. With quick thinking and calm hands, he guided the ship through the chaos. The engines roared as they pushed forward, narrowly avoiding collisions. When the danger passed, Mela smiled. You handled that well. Tomas breathed deeply. I'm learning. Their journey continued, filled with hope and determination. The core map was waking, and with it, the chance for a brighter future. Tomas knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but with friends like Mela and Lena, and the power of the mark on his arm, he was ready. Together, they would protect the knowledge and build a better galaxy, one where peace and understanding would shine. Tomas, Mela, and Lena sat together in the quiet room of Lena's home. The stars outside twinkled like distant lanterns, reminding them of how far their journey had taken them. They had traveled many worlds, found others with the spiral mark, and rebuilt a small network of sentinels. But the threat of the Karnics still hung over them like a dark cloud. We have done well, Lena said softly, but the Karnics will not stop. They grow stronger. Mela nodded. They want to find the core map and use it for their own gain. We must be ready. Tomas looked down at the spiral mark on his arm. It felt warm and alive, as if it held the spirit of all the sentinels before him. We can't let them win. Tomas said firmly, we have the knowledge, the strength, and the will. We just need to stand together. Lena smiled. Yes, and that is why we must gather all the sentinels we can find together. We are stronger than any enemy. The days that followed were filled with action. The small group sent messages across the galaxy, calling sentinels home slowly. Others answered people from different planets and species, all marked with the spiral symbol. Each brought their own talents, stories, and hope. Together, they formed a council. Tomas was surprised to find himself a leader among them, but he accepted the role with humility. The group planned how to protect the core map and keep its knowledge. Safe. One day, a warning came. The Karnix fleet was approaching Valora, where the main vault was located. They were ready to take the planet by force. Mela looked at Tomas. This is the moment. We must defend the vault. Tomas took a deep breath. We will. The Sentinels prepared for the battle. They had no large armies or powerful weapons, but they had something else, the knowledge of the core map and the unity it brought. When the Karnix fleet arrived, they found Valora guarded not by armies, but by fields of energy that shimmered like a shield. Tomas and the others used the core map's technology to protect the planet. The Karnix launched their attack, but the energy fields held strong. The Sentinels worked together, their spiral marks glowing with power as they focused on defense. The battle was long but peaceful. Tomas hoped it would remain that way. After hours, the Karnix fleet retreated. They could not break the shield or capture the core map. Tomas stood on a hill, looking at the stars. He felt the weight of responsibility, but also the strength of hope. We won, he said quietly. Mela came beside him. This is only the beginning. We must keep watch. But today, we have shown that peace can protect us. Lena joined them. The core map will guide us, and we will protect it for all who seek peace. The story of Tomas and the Sentinels spread across the galaxy. Many listened and joined the cause. The spiral mark became a symbol of hope and trust. Tomas returned to Omerafor for a time, visiting his family and friends. He shared what he had learned and promised to protect the future. But his heart was with the Sentinels. He knew his journey was far from over. One night, Tomas stood beneath the stars. He looked at his arm, the spiral mark glowing softly. Mela came beside him. The mark is not just a sign, she said. It is a promise that we will always work for peace, knowledge, and unity. Tomas smiled. I'm ready for whatever comes next. Together, they looked to the stars, knowing that as long as they stood together, the future would be bright.